The Azerbaijan Grand Prix weekend was supposed to be another statement of dominance for McLaren. After all, both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri had topped the morning session, reminding Ferrari, Red Bull and Mercedes exactly why they've been the main protagonists of this championship battle. But when the track bit back in the afternoon, the entire narrative flipped on its head. A wall strike for Norris, multiple brushes with danger for Piastri, and an investigation that could have rocked the championship leader's campaign suddenly. McLaren's dream weekend looked like it was spiraling out of control. And while Ferrari fans celebrated a 1-2 led by Lewis Hamilton in practice, the reality is more complicated. Beneath the lap times, whispers of concern, frustration and political intrigue emerged. Did McLaren push too hard too soon? Has Piastri's championship lead made him a target for the stewards? And what does Norris's costly crash mean for the delicate balance of their intra-team rivalry? This is not just another practice session. This is a turning point in a championship battle that could define careers. If you love Formula One and want to stay ahead of the drama unfolding in real time, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because what's happening here in Baku might just decide the fate of the 2025 season. The cracks in McLaren's title challenge have never looked more visible than they did in Baku. On paper, this was supposed to be a weekend where both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri struck fear into the hearts of their rivals. Their dominance in the morning session, a 1-2 finish with Norris quickest, was exactly the kind of statement that championship contenders love to make. It screamed confidence, raw pace, and intent. But in Formula One, especially on the unforgiving streets of Azerbaijan, momentum can vanish in an instant. And that's exactly what happened. Norris, desperate to close the 31-point gap to his teammate, was always going to push the limits. He knows that every race from now until the end of the season is a must-win opportunity. But there's a fine line between bravery and recklessness in Baku, and Norris found it at turn 4. His crash into the wall wasn't just a dent in his suspension and rear wheel, it was a dent in his championship hopes. The problem isn't just the car damage or the lost practice laps. The real cost is psychological. When you're already trailing your teammate, the last thing you want is a public mistake that reinforces the narrative. Piastri is cleaner, sharper, and better under pressure. His frustrated radio call, "I'm in the wall, tyres gone," was more than a status update. It was the voice of a man who knows exactly what's at stake. In this era of hyper-competitive phone, where Ferrari and McLaren are trading blows and Red Bull lurks in the background, there is no room for error. Every crash carries the weight of potential championship consequences. Norris called it a costly mistake. And he's right, not because of points lost yet, but because of momentum lost. On the other side of the garage, Oscar Piastri's day was a paradox. He escaped the session with less visible damage, but not without his own scares. The Australian brushed the wall at turn 15, then locked up heavily at turn 2. These weren't catastrophic mistakes, but they were warnings. Warnings that even Piastri, the current championship leader, is being pushed to his limit by the unique demands of Baku. But the real storm came not from the walls, but from the steward's room. Piastri was investigated for a potential yellow flag breach after Pierre Gasly ran wide at turn 1. Now, yellow flags are sacred in Formula One. Ignoring them can lead to heavy penalties, sometimes even grid drops that change the complexion of a weekend. For a few tense minutes, McLaren fans held their breath. If Piastri was penalised, it could have blown the championship wide open, handing Norris and Ferrari an unexpected lifeline. In the end, the stewards ruled that while Piastri was technically in breach of the regulations, there were mitigating circumstances. He walked away with only a reduced penalty. Crisis averted for now, but the incident adds another layer of intrigue. Was this a case of the stewards showing leniency to the championship leader, or was it simply a fair reading of the situation? Either way, it shows just how fine the margins are at this stage of the season. One wrong move, one steward's decision, and the entire championship picture can flip. There's no doubt about that. He topped FP1, and his unfinished laps in FP2 hinted at real pace. Even Charles Leclerc admitted as much, saying McLaren looked like they were in another world before Norris's crash. But speed without consistency is meaningless. Piastri, for all his little brushes with danger, has consistently walked away with points, podiums, and momentum. It's the hallmark of a driver who may not always be the absolute fastest on one lap, but who knows how to play the long game. And in a championship fight, that's what counts. Ferrari, meanwhile, had a session that looked great on paper, but carries its own caveats. Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion, finally seemed at home in the red car. His fastest lap, just 0.074 seconds ahead of Leclerc, marked Ferrari's first meaningful practice, 1-2 in months. For Hamilton, this was more than just pace, it was vindication. After a rough adaptation period where he struggled with braking and setup, he finally looked comfortable, aggressive, and confident. His comment, "Thank the Lord," wasn't just relief. It was release a sign that perhaps Ferrari's painful growing pains are over. But even Hamilton knows practice sessions don't always reveal the truth. Leclerc was brutally honest. McLaren's unfinished laps looked frightening. In his words, "We will all be very surprised tomorrow." That statement cuts to the heart of Baku's deception. McLaren may have looked down and out after the crashes and scares, but the raw pace is there. And if they put it together on Saturday and Sunday, today's drama may be forgotten as quickly as it happened. Yet here's the uncomfortable truth for McLaren fans. The real enemy may not be Ferrari or Red Bull, but themselves. The intra-team battle between Norris and Piastri is becoming the defining storyline of 2025. Every mistake, every investigation, every comment feeds into a bigger question. Can McLaren manage their two drivers without tearing their own campaign apart? If they let the rivalry boil unchecked, we could see more crashes, more lost points, and more opportunities for Ferrari to sneak in and steal the crown. That's why today's practice session matters more than the timesheet suggests. Norris's crash and Piastri's investigation aren't just isolated incidents, they're warning signs. Warning signs that under the immense weight of a title fight, even the smallest crack can become a fracture. And in a season this competitive, fractures are fatal. So here's the big question. Is McLaren's title campaign about to implode under the weight of its own ambition? Or was this just a blip in an otherwise dominant run? And more importantly, will Oscar Piastri's narrow escape from the stewards be remembered as a lucky break or the start of his unraveling? Let me know what you think in the comments below.